if not at the beginning of Wittgenstein's later philosophy, since what starts philosophy is no more to be known at the outset than how to make an end of it, and if not at the opening of philosophical investigations, since its opening is not to be confused with the starting of the philosophy it expresses, and since the terms in which that opening might be understood can hardly be given along with the opening itself, and if we acknowledge from the commencement, anyway leave open at the opening, that the way this work is written is internal to what it teaches, which means that we cannot understand the manner, call it the method, before we understand its work. And if we do not look to our history, since placing this book historically can hardly happen earlier than placing it philosophically, nor look to Wittgenstein's past, since then we are likely to suppose that the Investigations is written in criticism of the Tractatus, which is not so much wrong as empty, both because to know what constitutes its criticism would be to know what constitutes its philosophy, and because it is more to the present point to see how the Investigations is written in criticism of itself. Then where and how are we to approach this text? How shall we let this book teach us this or anything? I will say first, by way of introducing myself and saying why I insist that I will, throughout the following pages, upon the Investigations as a philosophical text, that I have wished to understand philosophy not as a set of problems, but as a set of texts. This means to me that the contribution of a philosopher, anyway, of a creative thinker, to the subject of philosophy is not to be understood as a contribution to or of a set of given problems, although both historians and not historians of the subject are given to suppose otherwise. And is the remark about texts and not problems itself to be taken as a philosophical text? It seems argumentative or empty enough, since obviously not all texts are philosophical ones, but only those that precisely contain problems of a certain sort. The fact that the remark is short would be no bar to that status. Many philosophical texts are short, like the tattletale told by a Cretan, or the story about the tree falling in the forest for no one to hear. Some philosophers are able to make about anything into a philosophical text, like a preacher improving upon the infant's first cry, while some people are not even able to start a quarrel with God. Some texts are as long books, but generally treated as though they are a set of given problems, something between conundrums and formal arguments. For example, Hume's treatise, which few seem actually to believe, but which many feel compelled to try to outsmart, as if so much argument just oughtn't to stand unanswered, as if to contribute a text were a kind of defacement, as if argumentative victory consisted in spoils. Some philosophical texts are as short books. For example, Descartes' Meditations, which so refines our essential options for philosophical belief that thinkers have seemed, since its appearance, and whether invited or not, compelled to reply to it, as if so little argument just oughtn't to stand unanswered. When its conclusions have seemed more or less disreputable, its repliers have focused on its methods, hoping to head the conclusions off or outnumber them. But I think one feels the knack of the methods, call it the arrogance, to be missed, which is no doubt something that perpetuates fascination with this text, as though its repliers find it incredible that one could truly and legitimately use oneself, clearly and distinctly, in arriving at conclusions so strange and so familiar. But in philosophy, to find that position incredible may well amount to disbelieving that one could oneself contribute a philosophical text. Some philosophical texts are, for practical purposes, as unending as the writings of, for example, Kant or Hegel, where the problem resides largely in mastering the text itself, hence in commentary. As though if one could believe all of it, there would be from then on no isolating problem of belief left. So Kierkegaard condemned the system, so Nietzsche contemned it. Here, contribution consists in opting to be marginal, which is, of course, not the only way of being marginal. You may think of these instances as beginning a budget of philosophical genres or paradigms. Then someone will think that I have been arrogantly neglectful of the genre of the academic paper, modest in its aims, content with its minor addition to a subject greater than itself. About the comparative greatness of the subject over its subjects, I have no doubt. But I would be more convinced of academic modesty had I not seen many who are daily surprised that, for example, Descartes or Pascal or Rousseau or the spirit of religion or of rationalism or of romanticism has survived the criticism fashioned in their essays on the subject a few years back. I speak of professional lives, frightening matters,